Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's
Radio Shack.
Welcome to the Retro Hack Shack. I'm Aaron Newcomb. Today I'm going to be doing another Tandy video, probably the last since this is getting close to the end of September. But I'm doing these videos for Sep Tandy, where a lot of us have gotten together and done Tandy videos all through the month of September. You can find a link to a playlist that Mr. Lurch put together down below. I'd also subscribe to his channel. It's great. A lot of people have been focusing on hardware. So Adrian Black did, for example, a restoration of a Coco 3. I tried to add a composite mod to my Coco 1. You can find that in the link above. That was a few videos ago. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you take a look at that. But there's been a lot of hardware work, and I thought it would be nice to focus on something a little different. So today, I'm going to be taking a look at these. This is a Radio Shack published comic book that was given out in the 80s featuring Superman saving the world. So I'm going to be taking a look at these comic books, and I'm also going to take a look at the differences in computer literacy between the United States and other countries like the United Kingdom. It's coming up right now on the Retro Hack Shack. So before we take a look at the comic books themselves, I thought it would be interesting, at least from my perspective, to take a look at why a comic book. Why did Radio Shack want to do a comic book as part of their marketing? It looks like Radio Shack did one of these or several of these a year, depending on how you count them, because they kind of overlap. There were several series here. One was the Science Fair series, which goes back into the early 70s. And then there was this brief Superman series where it was Superman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Supergirl. And then they went on to continue with the same kid characters in the Whiz Kids. And they continued the Whiz Kids up through the 90s, I believe. So there was quite a good run. But why? Why did they choose comic books? Well, it seems to me that obviously the first answer to that question is marketing. The truth is, as we all know, kids get their parents to buy stuff. And so you're much more likely to buy something if your kid recommends it to you than if you just see an ad, for example, from a particular company. It makes me think of some examples like the Sears catalog that would come, every year, seemingly about a month before the holiday season. And, you'd spend hours going through that and asking your parents or, begging your parents for a certain toy or something. Another good example, of course, would be Hasbro and what they did with Transformers and G.I. Joe in the mid-'80s as well. And even Apple got in on the game. So you can see here an Apple ad for the Apple IIc. And, they were basically a little tongue-in-cheek here. This was probably targeted more at adults than kids. But, they kind of got in on the game as well. And other computer companies did too. So Radio Shack and Tandy are no exception here in trying to convince kids to buy their products. But also in these comic books, as we'll see, there was a bit of computer literacy that they were doing as well. So they were also trying to educate kids on how computers work and increase their computer literacy. In fact, computer literacy was very different, or somewhat different at least, between the US and the UK, for example. So the UK had a dedicated computer literacy effort to make sure that people were getting educated on computers, and there were several programs at the time that the UK put out, and I actually really like watching these. One of my favorite ones was the computer program, or in the US, the weird way that it was spelled, I would say programmy, but who knows? I think it's supposed to be program. And that was a really good show. It kind of introduced computers to the general public.
You'd be happy with a pet. really set my heart on a computer.
You want to try watching the new TV series, sir? The computer program. There's even a computer that goes with it.
Oh, that's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting show was making the most of the micro.
Each chunk of 8 bits is called a byte, and the program then travels 1 byte at a time as a parallel bit stream along 8 wires known as a bus into this thing that I'm sitting on. This is the main chip, if you like, the microprocessor, the central processing unit, or CPU for short.
So if you are listening and you're from the UK, you probably remember these shows, and there were many more. But basically, it was computer literacy at its finest. They even had the BBC Micro made to go along with these series of programs so that you could buy the computer, follow along, and you'd have one common computer model. Even though there was lots of other ones out at the time, you'd at least have one that you could kind of follow along and use. And it was actually really a pretty cool thing. And you can see a really good example of this in the documentary Micromen, where at one point they talk about creating the BBC Micro, of course, and highly recommend it. It's good to watch. However, here in the United States, it doesn't seem like there was much of a government effort in terms of computer literacy. Of course, there was computer literacy in the schools. The schools wanted to jump on board, but it wasn't necessarily so planned and organized, like we're going to do this, we're going to have this one computer, et cetera, et cetera. So I can remember from my child there being computers that were talked about, at least in shows like Sesame Street, for example.
Then when you press the return button...
You want me to press it?
Yeah, I think so. Then all the information comes up on the screen. Everything you want to know comes up there. Give it a try.
Oh, something. Oh, that's
hey, look at that.
pretty.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Pretty, yeah.
Hey,
It says, "Welcome to the wonderful world of computers."
Hey, congratulations.
Good job.
Nice. Go.
Did you see that?
One of the more fascinating things for me as a kid watching Sesame Street, even though this was a little bit after my time, was their segments that they would do kind of like Man on the Street, where they would send out a crew and actually interview real kids doing something.
What is a computer?
Well, a computer is something that you write on and press buttons on. I know. Yeah, that's no.
But it obviously wasn't quite at the same level. Here in the US, probably the closest we got was the Computer Chronicles, which started in 1983, and they're fascinating for me, at least, to go back and watch some of the things that they were talking about, especially on the early episodes.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is Gary Kildall. On today's program, we're going to be looking at the evolution of computer hardware, from mainframes to minis to micros.
So without any big government program to sponsor a big computer literacy program, it was really left up to the schools or the companies. And in this case, it looks like Radio Shack decided to do a little bit of both, a little bit of marketing and a little bit of computer literacy, both of which played very well for them in terms of creating some demand for their product. So now let's take a look at the comic book, and I'm going to point out some of the things that I found really interesting as I went through them. So I wanted to take a look at this one first for one simple reason. My copy of this, my physical copy of this edition, has Major Disaster written on this guy's head. So some kid had penciled that in, which I thought was pretty creative. So I love to see those little personal touches. I think I used to write on some of my comic books sometimes. All of these comic books follow the same basic pattern, and I'm using the archives here to get a little bit sharper view of the comics so you can see them better. But basically, there's some sort of disaster. The villain comes in, and he's going to target Superman. And Superman needs to get a computer to save Metropolis. He ends up running into these kids, and they help him save the day, essentially. And along the way, they talk about computery kind of things, right? There's transistor radios, solid state hi-fi equipment, miniaturization, blah blah blah. They talk about how computers are made on the assembly line. All of this is important to help Superman save the day in this case. I love this one up here. Math, memory, input, screen output. I don't know why they math up here. I guess you need math to make this work, but it's not really a component of any of this. Math is what you do with the computer. Anyway, I guess you need math to make the computer. I don't know. So anyway, the story goes on, and, eventually they need to use the computer to be able to figure this out. You can see here, Superman is suffering and he can't figure out the math. He can't do the math on the chalkboard. So the kids have to do it on the computer for him. I don't know. It's very campy, but I think it's very funny. I did love these as a kid. I don't remember having these specifically, but I remember seeing them at least in the store. And so then, the kids help Superman save the day. And, life goes back to normal, and the kids get on TV with their TRS-80 color computer. So kind of glorifying, the kids and the computer, but, I think it's fine. The Radio Shack must have paid a lot for, to get DC to write these for them. So that's fine. One of the things I wanted to take a look at is back here on page 2 or 1 inside of the cover. And it's this Network One. According to TRS80.org, the Network One controller was an early networking system for the TRS-80. I guess this would have been the Model 1. Maybe it worked with the other models as well. I don't think it worked with the color computer. But basically, it cost $500 and was designed specifically for the classroom. The teacher could share programs with students basically using a selector switch. She could select which computer she wanted to interact with, and you could communicate with a particular computer in the classroom. So it's pretty cool. I guess it says here it was used for the Model 1 and the Model 3, and it was limited to 500 baud, which, it sounds really slow for today, but if they're just pushing basic programs out to the computers, it's, not that big of a deal. There was a Network 2, which which bumped up the speed to 1500 baud. And the Network 2 was compatible with not only the Model 1 and the Model 3, it was also compatible with the Model 4 and the color computer, the MC10, and even the Model 100. So that was pretty cool. I didn't even realize that this existed. So this comic book was my first entry into this particular solution for the classroom. And here's some similar advertisements to what we saw in the Apple ad. When a computer costs less than a bike or a camera, it's time to think about owning one, and so they're seeding those arguments to be had with parents by, I can see some kid taking this home and say, but Dad, it costs less than my bike or your camera. So that's pretty cool. This ad towards the back is also kind of subtle, but interesting. So they have this guy here. His name's Ralph, and Ralph learned to program, and now he's doing consulting basically because he understands how to program, and it got him through school, and he did well in science fairs, and he's making his own money. He looks very professional there with his nice shirt and pants and everything. But again, trying to sell that again probably through the parents. The parents pick this up, they look at it, and they go, "Oh, I could maybe my kid could get a job," and that actually holds true today. I always encourage kids that are interested in getting a job. This is an easy way to pick up some skills that could really lead you to a great career. So they weren't off point there. They were very on point with what they were saying about computers at this point. Another kind of cool thing in the back is this ad to get free batteries. Who remembers the Battery of the Month Club? Get one battery each month for 1 year. I don't remember signing up for that, but I remember the ads for it. I always thought it was kind of funny. Now, after the Superman comic books, the Whiz Kids continued, but it was a little bit more of a Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew kind of situation, where almost like Scooby-Doo or something, where they were actually going through, solving a mystery, that you can tell who the bad guys are here. There's things going on. But again, they have to do something to, use the computer to be able to solve the mystery. And so, but basically it follows the same pattern. There's a bad guy, the kids have to use the computer to save the day. And they also talk about, throughout the comic book, they'll put in little educational things, transistors, and a little bit of history here with William Shockley and some of the other folks that were early on in electronics. And and then they come back and eventually they save the day. So, of course, the style here differs a little bit. All of the people that illustrated and wrote were doing these a lot of them had long histories in doing comic books. The ones that did illustration and writing for Superman, for example, I mean, those were the DC folks that were doing the Superman series at the time. So this was not much of a departure for them. But follows pretty much the same thing. They're kind of exciting to read, actually, but it always comes back to the computer saving the day. And I love this at the end here. Oh, I guess computers do make a difference. Yeah, let's get to it. Another lesson on the computer. So it's pretty funny to read through these. Again, pretty campy, but whiz kids tackle terrorism is the headline now in the paper. But pretty cool. And then you can see here some information about the different things that you should know about a computer, like I showed before. A lot of them ended with these science kits that Radio Shack used to promote. These were pretty fun. I had one of these as a kid. You could connect up different things, follow some instructions, and get lights to blink or sounds to play. Pretty cool stuff back in the day. It was kind of a good introduction to electronics. And then at the back of each of these, there's an opportunity to order more for free. And you could order, here's a 50 book packet of, either the electronics one or the WizKids one that they would send to you if you just filled this out and mailed it into them as a teacher. So that's pretty cool. In fact, in the back of this particular issue, this was the one with Superman and Wonder Woman, along with the ad for the science fair kits, as they call them here. There was also an actual quiz to make it look a little bit more, like you were taking a test, like this was something you were going to hand out, and it even has the answer key upside down. It's a little funny to me, but I don't know. Did anybody use this in the classroom as a quiz? I don't think so, but it's just kind of funny how they added that in. So you could either take it on your own, or you could get a teacher to give it to you. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to show the third of the various type of comic books. This one is about electronics. They were called the Science Fair series, I guess. And you can see this one's from 1982, and it's got a picture of the space shuttle on the front. And they talk all about the space program. This one has some nice color ads on the inside, advertising the color computer one and the pocket computer. And basically it just goes through the space program. And there's Nikola Tesla there, pondering all of his inventions that he was going to make. But it does a pretty good job, actually, of introducing the history of electronics, or in this case, how we got to the space program. And, again, talking about components, which Radio Shack was known for. So, I don't know, maybe whet your appetite a little bit to get you into the store to buy some of those. And, of course, using the products that they were trying to sell you as well. I don't think they used a color computer one as part of the space shuttle program, but I could be wrong. But they're pretty good. They're short. This one's 24 pages. And again, it ends with an ad and an opportunity for you to order more of these free of charge for your classroom if you're a teacher. So pretty cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Retro Hack Shack. I hope you enjoyed looking at those Radio Shack comic books. Maybe they brought back some nostalgia. Maybe you had some when you were a kid. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If you want to help support my channel, there's a few ways you can do it. One is to like this episode, subscribe to my channel. Those are easy ways. And you can also sign up on Patreon. If you become a patron, you get access to me in terms of letting me know what you want to see on the show. You get to choose from a list, and I typically will concentrate on doing those episodes before I do other episodes. So you get direct access that way. You also get direct access to a Q&A that I put out where you can ask me questions about how I make the show, or really anything in general. And finally, if I ever do start doing ads or have sponsorships, you'll get ad-free, sponsor-free content that you can enjoy without having to go through that. So quite a number of benefits. Do support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching the episode, and we'll see you next time.